to be appointed. So may not be short for very long. Is that right? Andrew, did you see that?
Tomorrow.
There?
Yeah, tomorrow night, we're doing appointments.
Great.
She looks really qualified. I looked at the packet for the Board of Selectmen. She has a history as a planning director of all kinds of things.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, George.
All right, great. So we may as well jump in. George, I'm gonna pass it over to you. I did just see your email you sent out earlier today. So I think everybody should have gotten it.
yeah, that was on a later agenda item, right?
Yeah, it's the CPC funding application.
Yeah, so let's talk about 107 outreach. I have took the initiative, even though we're gonna have to do this virtually, to set up a public meeting with all the neighbors around 107 Main Street. And I think we're gonna do it just like this. And I'm gonna put together maybe a dozen slides that summarize the town's process and the studies that have been done and where we are, our conceptual thinking for what we'd love to see on the property, and an explanation of how the RFP process works. Because when you convey property into private hands, you do so only with certain conditions, and you better spell those out ahead of time. So, you know, this is a listening session. I think we owe the neighbors a listening session. I think this also helps out the developer who will obtain all the permits and have to face the neighbors in a formal setting later, so that they have been heard before before we propose anything concrete. I do have newspaper's not here. I got the RFP written, so, you know, we could issue it tomorrow if we wanted to, but I think we need to listen and hear and see if there's some adjustments to make in it before we release it to anybody. So
Great.
that's 107. I think we're done.
Yeah, I would just touch on the idea of the CPC funding we got for education. We may want to, if anybody wants to start thinking about ideas that we may utilize that funding to promote this
Yeah.
project, whether it's with the neighbors or town generally, might be a good idea. But I think George might want to address that later. So I'll let him keep going.
Well, no, just on CPC funding. So I sent around your application that got you $5,000 from CPC for outreach. This is the first time you've actually had cash that you can use for outreach. So use it wisely. And, you know, there was a list of things that was put together for how we would spend the money. I think that is loose and fluid because all the uses are really consistent with getting the word out and educating the public. So, you know, with a couple of large projects coming up with the bank possibly coming to fruition and 107 Main, and who knows what we might do with the other unnamed property on Route 6A. It might be a good time to just remind people that even though we're in an emergency time, that we're thinking long-term and we're trying to address housing needs in the community. You've got money here, but you don't have, somebody's gonna have to do the legwork to develop these brochures. I'm glad to contribute, glad to give you little, you know, symbols or things we can do with the mapping them. If they're helpful, they might not be helpful. But I guess, you know, it's up to you guys how you want to approach this. Do you want to make it project specific or general?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that I think maybe this is something for a broader conversation. Give people some time to chew on it for our next meeting. I mean, this is what we saw as a distinct difference between our role and the trust's role, was being able to educate people and communicate, you know, in a more general way to gain support for programs or projects, whatever it might be. So I think this is something specific that we had envisioned for the Affordable Housing Committee rather than the trust. So if you guys want to think about it, I'll put it on the agenda for next month. And we can have a more lengthy discussion about what we think might be good for outreach. I think it'll be helpful to also hear what the neighbors have to say to sort of inform that discussion as well.
Do we have a date for that?
Oh, go ahead.
August 25th.
What, for the neighborhood?
Yep. So I'm actually unavailable. I let Alan know that. But it was August 25th was the meeting. It was there. Do you know the time on that, George?
I think we're going to start at 4 o'clock. but I'll send around an invitation to everybody. The Affordable Housing Trust Board will schedule a meeting and post a meeting because a quorum of them will be there. You are all welcome to come and participate and ask questions and things, but I just wanted to make sure that since the trust was conducting it, they're posted. I'm not necessarily worried about the Affordable Housing Committee members showing up individually just to watch the proceedings. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to move on to Cape Cod 5?
Yes.
You put that on the agenda, but we are in a negotiating position right now with Cape Cod 5. We're trying to work out something that is good for all of us. We're in a public session right now, so I would say that it's very much a live project. We have very interested parties, and we've gotten some contributions from from a private agency that has helped us kind of understand how we might structure a project. So I'm really hopeful we'll get something together here that we can make public, but I don't want to stay much more until we do so. Fair enough?
Yes, thanks, George.
Okay.
Anything else you want to bring to our attention?
No, I think we've got some good things that are coming faster than they have ever come before. So your efforts to create the trust are really coming to fruition. It's looking good.
It does look good, and I'm glad to hear that. Great. So I'll move on to 3. I got an email from Lynn Brudeau about an invitation to meet with the Finance Committee. We suggested the September 24th date, but if we need to change it, we can. She invited 1, 2, all of us. Really depends on how you guys felt about it. I explained to her that we haven't met since February. So this is our first meeting other than the joint meeting last week. So I asked for 2 meetings to sort of get our feet under us, and she really wants, or FinCom is looking for us to sort of identify what is the difference between us, what the distinct roles are, and if there's any way that they can be supportive of what we're trying to do or understand it better. So I think I'm gonna expand that to a larger agenda item for next week. Or next month, excuse me. But I wanted you guys to put that date on your calendar. It is the 7 o'clock. It will be Zoom. You are welcome to come and we can sort of discuss whether or not we'll have a quorum or maybe want to nominate 2 or 3 people to do that meeting. In the past, I think it was just 3 of us went. I think it was Tom and myself and Barry. Which was one of the conversations that led to the trust and the funding from the town budget to the trust. So they've been very fruitful meetings in the past, and I think we should take up the opportunity when it's presented. So George, if you have anything you think that we should highlight, happy to hear about it.
Yeah, I won't be at your September 1st meeting, but the way you break down the responsibilities of the 2 groups, I think is very important for the FinCom to hear. And of course, you're going to want more money. I think they're entirely behind. They're very supportive of this endeavor, of this initiative, of housing in general. They see the long-term needs of the town already. It doesn't sound like a super heavy lift to go to this meeting.
No, and it's always nice to get an invitation.
Right.
So whoever's available, we'll talk about that. I'll put it on the agenda for next month. Okay, moving right along. So a couple of these are repeats from our last meeting, just as a refresher, including this inclusionary zoning. This was something I had brought up that I was looking to potentially have a conversation about increasing the inclusionary zoning that we currently have. I think we had some positive feedback and then we kind of got stalled out. So I was wondering if anybody's sort of changed their opinion on that, or if you need me to give in a little more detail about what I'm talking about, feel free to ask.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So the inclusionary zoning is what we have currently, which is if you're going to do a project in Orleans of 10 units or more, one of them has to be affordable. So that's the way that we've chosen to do it. The way that they drafted the bylaws, there's actually incentives. So if you do an affordable unit, you get a bonus unit. And I'm sure George can do this in much better detail, and I'm sure Andrea Carly could too. Then I'm giving it justice. But it is a 10% requirement essentially, as long as you do 10 or more. My feeling is, I think we're selling ourselves short. I think we could do something a little bit more with the inclusionary zoning. There are other ways to do inclusionary zoning, like rather than requiring a builder to build a unit, you can ask for a contribution to the trust. I think you set a scale. If you do, 5 units, it's X amount. If you do 8 units, it's X amount. Just a way to capture a couple more of those, really high-end projects that are putting in 5, 6, 7, 8 units. And some people who may choose to do 9, so they don't have to do one affordable. I think it's a way to, get some more funding for the trust and utilize some of that space. But that was a thought that I had, and I was sort of looking for feedback if you all thought that might be worthwhile.
Okay, thank you.
George, do you want to give a quick rundown of what the current, if you off the top of your head want to tell us what those requirements are now?
I think you nailed what the requirements are now.
Okay.
It's 1 per 10 with a bonus unit. The way I think about this policy wise is nobody's building multifamily right now. So if I knew what was going to happen in 5 years, in 10 years, or when the sewers are turned on and everybody gets a bill for their commercial property, it would be easier to craft a bylaw. Intuitively, I love the idea of getting any project 5 units or above to make some contribution. I don't think we can get down to the single family house level, although that's where the real money is. We just want a percentage of those building permits that go in for those big houses. But if it's too hard for builders to build here, remember, anything you charge is going to be an additional cost on the developers. We all know they seem to be making a pile of money, but they'll go somewhere else if it's easier and cheaper and they can make more. So I don't want it to be a disincentive to investment in the town, because I really think our downtown is primed, but it really needs investment. So, that's just the way I, kind of think about the holistic look at inclusionary zoning. On the other hand, you are an affordable housing group. I think you should push for it and watch that pushback come back and be prepared for it and be prepared to, adjust your requirements. Now, the other piece of this is, let's say it costs, I don't know, $300,000 to develop a housing unit. Are we going to charge $300 as a cash contribution for a developer who wants to avoid building an affordable unit? That is a lot of cash. What if he has to build 2? That's a lot of cash out of pocket. Most developers will not be able to do that until the very end of the project, of course, because, put up as little cash as possible. And it just starts to sound like a development disincentive at some level. So let's just think through how, put ourselves in the seat of the various parties as we think through how this might work and what they might be willing to do or not do. Those are my thoughts.
What do the surrounding towns do? They have such a requirement or similar requirements?
A lot of towns have the inclusionary requirement, and they have a payment in lieu of building the unit. I think the Cape Cod Commission's is up over $200,000. If you're required to do housing and you don't want to build it, you can make a cash contribution. But it's across the board. Some towns have nothing at all. We're a fairly small town. We're not seeing the big 40B developments or anything like that.
Yeah, and just to touch on the sewers thing, that was my thought, was to try to do this before the sewers. I think, I don't think we're going to see anything come of it prior to the sewers, but it was sort of in anticipation of the sewer project that we would do this. But I'm sorry, Fran, it looks like you have something to say.
Well, I just personally don't like the idea of allowing a developer to make a cash contribution, which takes the responsibility off that developer's shoulders and puts it onto the trust to create the housing. I think that developers should be motivated to include affordable units in their developments.
And I think that was what our thought was in the onset. It was, we need the units. We don't really, it's not, we don't want the money. We'd rather they were required to build the units. And I don't think I had considered changing the 1 for 10. It was more trying to target those that were under the 10 projects and trying to get some more cash flow into the trust
Mhm.
for other projects,
Mhm.
I guess was my thought about it. But I would agree, Fran. I think leaving the 1 for 10, I think is probably necessary, and they get the bonus. So I'm with you on that.
So one point on process, if I may, the planning board will be taking up its list of the universe of zoning ideas to bring to the town meeting next May. They'll be taking that up in September. So if at your September 1st meeting, you could consider this and vote for something general. If you would like to see the inclusionary requirements expanded and added to the zoning bylaw, this is just the time to do it. You're not late in the game. You'll get full consideration. And I'll do my best to make sure that this the board is aware of the need for it.
Go ahead, Andrea.
Actually, and George will tell you, the planning board has been wrestling with how to incentivize, what other tools do we have as a town? Again, carrots work better than sticks. And so are there other tools, George, that are even beyond planning board that might be tax-based or loan fund, or if you go the extra distance? I don't know what tools we have across silos in town to think about, but that would be great planning board research kind of thing.
Yeah, that's bigger than what the planning board could do. That would be a select board level discussion. If
Yeah.
you're talking about some incremental, tax incorporation that makes it easier for the person who develops for a while. Sure. We can talk about those things.
When was that planning board meeting that if we wanted to vote to get on their agenda to pitch the idea of more inclusionary zoning?
If you could just vote it at your September 1st meeting.
Okay,
I mean, you can vote it right now if you want to.
I don't have it on the agenda to vote.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but,
you do. Yeah, you have it on there right here, so you could probably vote it if you want. I just want you to get on the record so I have something to carry to the board that isn't just my idea sitting in my little corner office, thinking of things to do. If it comes from the board, I think it has some gravity to it.
So that being said, do I have a motion to request the planning board's consideration of expanding the current inclusionary zoning in Orleans?
Second.
Sorry,
Well,
Bill, were you
actually-
first on that? I saw you
I was-
raising your hand.
I was going to ask a question on that.
Go ahead.
So it just can be that general, George, at this point, just that we consider. I see
Yeah, I
Andrea
just want to
nod-
get it into the,
Andrea nodding her head. So, yeah, I will
Yeah.
make that motion then.
I have Bill as a first. I think I saw Shelley as a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye, I see 3. Nancy?
can I just ask you to, could you ask the members to just state their name and how they vote?
Okay.
Sure. I'm just gonna go with how I see people here. So Nancy,
Yes,
Bill,
Yes, Bill Stocker.
Shelley,
Shelley Dawson, yes.
Fran,
Fran McLennan, yes.
and Katie Whibby, aye. The other thought in the idea of giving the planning board other ideas, George, you sort of mentioned, or we had talked about a long time ago, some sort of a fee for permits for houses that were of a certain size.
Yeah,
Did we talk about that?
we did, and I'm not sure that that's legal,
Okay.
but I can revisit it with our town council. I think there's some equal treatment requirement that we need to adhere to. But let me go back to houses of a certain size pay more because they demand more in services or something, and see if we can put that together, okay?
All
I'll
right,
get you an answer on that.
thanks. Okay, anything else on that front? Similarly, if you guys have other ideas, I'll put that planning board meeting on our September 1st agenda. So if there's anything else you guys think of between now and then that we want to bring to their attention, we can discuss it on September 1st. Okay. So the next item, there has been, number 5, a lot of talk about how we might incentivize maybe increasing the income for individuals that could be eligible for subsidized properties or affordable housing, or at the same time, maybe creating some market rate housing, because there is just a shortage overall of rental properties in Orleans. So we did briefly, I think, previously talk about, what Provincetown did, which was raise their median income to 200%. I sent out as part of the meeting packet their warrant article. In reading it, my take is that it requires an entirely separate board, which would have to be formed in order to, I think they called it the Rental Housing Trust Board or something along those lines. So it would be separate from the our current trust. And in that vein, I think the conversation was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we're not quite there yet. We weren't quite ready to go out and create another board to do another sort of rental, hitting a bigger portion of AMI, but maybe a better discussion of how we could make more housing more affordable. So does anybody want to add to it, or I will just turn it over to Fran, who sort of had some comments on the whole idea.
Yeah, I just have a question. Did they have a trust board otherwise before they did that?
That's a good question that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, I think they ended up with a second trust.
That this
So
one
now they
was-
have an affordable trust and a market rate unit trust.
Okay, thank you.
Does everybody recall that conversation of, maybe not thinking that was the best idea, at least not currently, but exploring other options? I'm seeing plans. Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
What is this compared to? I'm confused. Matt Runyon was talking about having something approved by the legislature about changing our AMI. Is that this, or is that something different? Which comes first?
Oh, well, I think we would need to pass a warrant article that would
To set up
give the authority to go to the legislature to request permission to approve it. George?
Yes, that's exactly it. So we'd have to make the request, but since I have the floor, I was looking at the 2019 income limits and what they kind of allow. And I was trying to compare that with what's the market out there for Orleans units. And I couldn't do that. You know why? I couldn't find a unit for rent. There's like 4 of them, and and 2 of them look sketchy, I got to tell you. So anyway, I don't know if you guys remember this income thing? Had all the income limits, the percentages for this household size and everything. I'm sorry, that was very small, but you all saw it. So if you took this, if you had a 3-person, I did these for 3-person households, at 80%, the rent would be $14.42 a month. Okay, so I'm not sure we can find a unit for $14.42 a month on the market. At 100%, instead of for 3-person household, it's $2,060 a month. There's probably 2 units to be found. I'm trying to see if changing the AMI is going to make a huge difference. And if you went up to 120%, you're up to $2,400 a month. You could probably find a couple of market rate kind of things. This is all about serving the people who need to be served. And I wonder if this does not have to be on a fast track, because you're doing a lot of work to serve the people at under 100% and under 80% right now through the community housing and all the affordables. So while the the band, the income and, pay, what people can pay, the band of residents who are going to be looking for these units is not the whole set of residents in the town. I just didn't see that there was a huge rush to do this. And I know other people have made stronger arguments for it. I just had some thoughts that I just didn't see how it lined up quite yet. Does that?
So you're saying we don't have the stock for it, so therefore we don't need to do it? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that perhaps before you extend your efforts to other households, you want to serve the households that are most desperately in need now. And I know there are other perspectives that say, let's get the working households, the people who are both making $30,000, $50,000, so you have $100,000 income and a young family, and help those people get into town. But these are policy issues. I just wanted to offer a little information. I'm not sure it's a very cogent thought, but I didn't see clear logic on it just yet.
Can I make it more confusing by asking about the place, the Lofts in Hyannis? Do you know what those are, the AMI for those? The ones that they just opened up?
The 57?
Yeah.
Lots at 57? Yeah. 8 of those, there are 8 or 9, and 2 are affordables. The others are just market rate, and they're like $1,800 a month.
Thank you.
Fran, did you want to talk about your comments about market rate?
Yeah, I think that process that Provincetown went through is just super cumbersome. And I don't see us in a position to do that. But it seems to me there's a lot cleaner way to provide housing for people both above and below 100% AMI. And that is by having mixed use housing and being able to have, as the lots, what is it called, in Lofts at 57. The article that I read about that, they have the affordable units, only 2, and then they have market rate units for rental. And there's 2 advantages of that, it seems to me. Our comprehensive plan asks that we not cluster our affordable housing in one space, that we disseminate it amongst the community. So that's number 1. That's a value of our town. Secondly, I think that if there's market rate and affordable units in the same development, it will be a lot more palatable, if you will, for people who may be a little bit hesitant about financing affordable housing, especially affordable housing in big clusters. And thirdly, I think that if you have an affordable housing project that has a discrepancy between how much it's going to cost and how much funding is available, if you then make some of those units affordable and some of the market rate, you are actually closing that financial gap by bringing in more money into the project with the market rate housing. So I think that is clean. I think it serves our values. And I think it is financially much to our advantage.
So Fran, have you thought about how, if we were going to create market rate, how that would get funded? Because the money from the trust can only be used to create affordable housing as it's, defined in,
Right.
How it's defined, which is 100% or under even 80%.
Well, Hack did it for their project in Hyannis, the one we we're just talking about. Penrose did it for a project in Auburn that they just announced their opening for. And there was another one that they did further away that I don't remember where it was. So it's possible to do it. And these folks who are developing affordable units affordable housing are in fact finding ways to do that funding. So we were just talking about the inclusionary zoning, and we were wondering about incentives for having the developer include affordable units. Well, why not the incentive be that the developer comes to the trust and says, can you give me a subsidy for including affordable units in my development? So it seems to me that takes care of that issue as well.
I'm not sure I followed you on that one. Can you go, how, if they're creating a market rate unit, they can't get a subsidy from the trust. So I didn't quite follow you on that.
No, but if you were talking about inclusionary zoning
Yes.
and Andrea was talking about incentives. So say we have a developer and he wants to develop 15 units of market rate housing. But we'd like him to include some affordable units. Well, he says, I can't afford to do that and make a profit on my development. So we say, well, let's talk. And is there a way that we could support the affordable units with a subsidy from our trust, not the market rate units, but the affordable units? And therefore, it's a mixed income development. And you don't have to worry about whether it's 10% or 5% or whatever the heck it is, because we become a source of revenue for people who are developing in the town to include affordable housing in their developments.
Do you have any specific ideas that you could? I'm having trouble grasping it because right now, if they're building 15 units, they have to put in one affordable. And for the trust to then subsidize it, it sort of makes the inclusionary zoning.
Well, they could put in two.
If they go above and beyond. I see you, Andrea, what's up?
Because if they put in 25%,
Yeah.
you know, you could aim higher than, and that feeds what you were talking about, Katie. You aim higher and you say at this threshold, at 25% of your project, our incentive, we will incentivize you and give you relief if those units are embedded into you know, market rate. I mean, you can choose whatever, but I think Fran is onto something, because then you'd have a number of units that you can then create the incentive for. If you've got the benchmark that aims us well beyond, in terms of public perception, that 10% that's hanging out there for all kinds of myths about need. And I'm thinking of West Road, frankly, how they got relief in other zoning challenges by, George, you know the history on this, but there were he needed some things and he failed the first time to get them. But when he came back and said, I'm doing this as 25%, suddenly those roadblocks were lifted.
He used a 40B comprehensive permit process that basically put the town in with an application it could not refuse. And so 11 of the 42 units are affordable. And quite frankly, the resales on those are getting more and more difficult to keep affordable.
Well, that's a very high-end development with a very high monthly fee. So
Yes.
I don't envision our being able to participate in too many developments like that. But when I think of Cape Cod 5, where we say we have 50 units there, those units are relatively small to fit into that site. And therefore, the market rate value for those is not going to be high and excessive. It's going to be available. And I think the market for those is the young professional people that is talked about in the article about the hack development at Lofts at 57.
But isn't the issue the building cost of the unit as opposed to the rate of the market? I mean, if we were going to invest in something, how are we going to invest in the building cost? Wouldn't that be where the developer would want the help?
Well, a subsidy to get the project built.
But it wouldn't be the cost of the whole unit, because that, I'm trying to figure out the amount of money that would cost us to do that, and it sounds like a lot if it was
The,
the rent of the unit. I like the idea, but I'm trying to do the figures in my head. If we said we would do that, I would think the basis would be the cost of the unit. Is that not correct?
The cost of the affordable unit, Nancy?
If a developer wanted the incentivized for us to have him get another affordable unit, wouldn't we have to pay the cost of building the unit? Not necessarily just whatever the rent was, but we're talking
Well,
about the actual cost.
Maybe yes, but when you think about when you're mixing market rate rentals, don't forget there's income coming to the developer after he has built his project.
Right.
So the income is bringing money to that developer. So it's not just the cost of construction you're thinking about. It's a more fluid kind of process.
Yeah, if we're talking about developing new market rate housing from, and building new buildings for that, nobody's done it on the Lower Cape. Nobody's done it in Barnstable County for a long time, just putting up apartments to rent because it's not economically viable on its own. With Cape Cod 5 property, that's pretty much programmed to be a tax credit project in order to work, because the developer then gets about 80% of his whole capital cost upfront through the tax credit program. Let's hope the tax credits all sell at the same rate that they've been selling for the last 20 years as we go forward. But absent that large chunk, the developer's revenue, if you just built a market rate rental, it goes all into the debt service and then some. They don't carry themselves on their own. Otherwise, people would be building them. So I think the mix might work in some other model. It doesn't work right now for the 40 to 50 unit tax credit project because those are highly programmed.
Except that Penrose just opened one in Auburn.
I'd like to see how that was put together and how many units that is, because it may be that there's a threshold for the tax credit number that you need to have enough tax credits to be marketable.
Yeah.
And then the rest can be market rate units. I don't know. Yeah.
Right. But I think we should explore that
Sure.
rather than just saying we don't think this is possible before we've actually explored it.
Haven't seen a model for it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, let's talk with Penrose. I'd be happy to pursue that.
And if you want to get in touch and see what you can get from that Auburn project, and we
Yeah.
can,
And maybe from the Hack project as well.
yeah, I mean, Elisa did give us quite a bit of background when she
Yeah.
came to that meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe she'd want to just give us some documents as opposed to, I'd hate to ask her back to repeat herself. But if anybody has any
That's
recollection.
probably public information. That's public information. We should be able to access it, I would think.
Yeah, that was a Board of Selectmen meeting too. We could probably pull the tape
Mhm.
Probably find the meeting packet.
or the
Yeah.
meeting packet. Because as I recall, it was their own funds. They used subsidies for the affordable units, but they were the developer and it was their
Right.
money out of their,
Right.
budget that
Right.
paid for the other
So
one.
somehow they put together that project, made it work. They got the funding for it. And frankly, if we are talking about values, and if we value housing that is mixed income, then I think we need to think about putting our money where our mouth is and maybe putting up a little bit more than we might otherwise.
You're talking about the incentive piece of if they go over the 10%.
Well, I wasn't thinking 10%. I was just thinking in general. I think that we can build housing like every other big project of 50 housing or 80 units in buildings that are unattractive, and they provide the housing for affordable people. I do not think that is respectful. I do not think that is the value for Orleans. And I do think we need to consider alternatives. And I think that we should consider being able to pay for those values if we think it's important. So I'm just thinking we need to look at this. It's not something we've talked about, but here we are at the implementations phase, and we should be talking about this, I think.
So what would you suggest going forward, Fran? What would you like the next conversation to be about?
I would like to contact Penrose and to be able to talk about that concept. If George thought that would be, or George, you might prefer to do that, but I would like to do it actually.
I'm good either way. Sure.
Okay, well, I'm happy to do it.
Okay, so Fran, if you want to do that.
Okay.
Andrea, can you think of something off the top of your head? As far as the incentivizing goes, I am struggling with, I'm all for incentivizing more than the 10%. But I want to do it in such a way that doesn't lock the trust into X amount of dollars for X amount of units. So is there a way to incentivize it or make people aware of their opportunity to go to the trust for funding? Do you need a bylaw for that? Is that just
Well,
trying
first
to
of all,
figure out
just
the mechanics of it?
I'm a novice in all of this. My education is less than George and Fran in terms of the Housing Institute. But I know that sometimes, and George will jump in if I'm incorrect, that when a project comes to town, they need relief, that's not just financial, that there may be other things. And I agree with Fran completely that if we're talking about that missing middle housing prototype, bungalows, units, with 4 things, we have not had the public conversation about, no matter what the housing costs, what do we want it to look like, in town. We don't have any prototypes or vocabulary for it. And so I think there are a lot of conversations to be had and some very creative thinking that needs to go on. And I think Fran is right. Other communities have figured out how to do this and to do it in a scale architecturally and kind of a urban planning design twist that maybe the incentives or the reliefs are the complementary, the same way that other units, like we get mass work grants that pull out part of the budget, that maybe the incentives or the subsidies are for other parts of the project. So you might get a tax break if you do, let's say 20% of your units, and you're only going to build 12 units. That maybe what we need to do is develop a palette or a range, a menu of, we so love affordable housing, mixed use embedded into our community, that we incentivize and we work with you, like the landscaping plan, or we contribute design services, or those kinds of matching resources that would save somebody a line item in their budget. I don't think we've had that conversation. So the answer is, I don't know, but there's a lot of brainstorming to be done.
Katie, this is Rich. May I make a comment?
Of course. I didn't know who that was. Hi, Rich.
Yeah, I got on a little late, but I've been following for the last little bit. Going along with what Fran said, just, it'd be great to incentivize anybody from a single, developer, meaning like a single person looking to start a home, and have the incentive just from the trust to be able to support that, maybe rehabbing a home that, is in a certain location that, needs a little bit of TLC, to a developer that's going to come in with, heavy equipment and put in several units, like the whole scale of, you know, from just single guy to all the way to company.
Yeah, and I guess I'm trying, what I'm sort of fishing around for is where can we look to for these ideas? For what other towns may be doing it? Is it Mass Housing Partnership? Is it DHCD? Who can we look to that might have a better idea of, you know, what other communities might be doing to incentivize these market rate housings? And if we can find a resource like that, I would love somebody to explore it, get some more information on it, and maybe have a little bit more for our next meeting. And Fran, I just don't know where to look for that type of information. So do you have a thought about where that might be?
Well, what about Mass Housing Partnership? They've certainly been knowledgeable about so many things. And certainly have relationships with all the towns. So that might be one place to go and ask questions.
Okay. So I will, we have a couple contacts at Mass Housing Partnership. I can send an email out and sort of get an idea of where they've been for incentivizing market rate housing.
Yeah.
And we'll just add it to the agenda with Penrose for next meeting.
Okay.
If anybody else comes across anything, or I would ask all of you to, you know, take some time and look into it, do a little research on your own. Yeah, Andrea.
I'm thinking about, you got me thinking about kind of the controversy with CVS. I don't know if you remember, but they wanted to take a cookie cutter store and place it in town so it didn't fit. And I guess what I'm thinking about is part of the cost of developing a project, whether it's a single family home or a multi-unit project, is those other line items. And if we had a resource of like either regionally or to our town alone, where we could use like the way infrastructure, MassWorks took that line item off the project in Brewster, I think it was, that, you know, maybe there is something to tease out about developing a bank of resources, and it could be intellectual resources, where we have partners who will donate parts of designs or parts of components or be available that will save, that fit with what we want to see in a project, but take that line item off the cost of developing a project. And then the developer doesn't, that our resources may not just be cash, it may be in-kind contributions. That's all. I think we ought to think about that, because reflecting on what Fran said in terms of the scale and impact of a project, if we really have preferences, maybe we should be developing those preferences and those professionals who have a relationship with the town, and think about procuring those services at a discount or some kind of other relationship that is passed on as a benefit to the developer.
Okay. And that's another one, Andrea, I'm trying to think of a next step. Do you have a way of next step that could go in that direction?
Yes, I have some, George knows, we have some folks in town who have been donating design services to town projects for years. And actually this morning, we have the mother of a very famous architect in town who has done housing projects all over and has a very cool aesthetic, and believes that you can build in such a way that actually promote healthy communities. And I would reach out. I've been trying to get him to come to town to do a public conversation. I could reach out.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any thoughts on market rate housing or increasing affordable housing opportunities sort of with this topic, or should we move on? Okay. So the next one, I guess sort of goes along, maybe I should have had it a little sooner, talking about the 107 or the Cape Cod 5 project, was the idea of a local preference. I know that this sort of gets a lot of attention, and I am not well versed on the local preference. I know that the local preference is typically limited by the funding of a project, but I think when we're thinking policy level, and this is something, sorry, my printer is printing. Thinking on a policy level, Fran sort of brought it to our attention of, you know, do we want a local preference? Or are we just looking to incentivize people from all over to come to Orleans to diversify our population? Or are we looking to help specific to Orleans residents, and what our thoughts are, and the, you know, our position on advocating for or against a local preference policy? So I'll turn that one over to Fran too, because it seems, I think she's had some thoughts on it as it is.
Well, I think it's very relevant right now with the discussion about Black Lives Matter and the ways that we've had systemic bias, racism in our society. You may or may not know about the laws that were passed after World War II, when the Federal Housing Bureau Commission, whatever it is, was formed. Then the rules and regulations for developing housing forbid them to sell to Black people or people of color. And so all throughout the years, the banks, the insurance companies have not insured, the banks have not provided loans. And so that there's, and where people live obviously has implications for their level of education, their ability to access services, their ability to commute to a job. So it has had huge implications throughout our entire society. And one of the ways that people are looking at local preference is that it too is one of those racist policies that allows a community to not invite people from the outside in. So I just think we should talk about whether or not how we feel about this. Yes, there are people that we want to, local people we want to support, obviously. But what's our position? I don't know. I just think we need to talk about this.
Does anybody have any thoughts or comments in response to Fran's suggestion?
It always comes up as soon as we have a something available. It came up every time they've come from, you know, for other places to come and ask for money for CPC. It always comes up. That's the first question. And usually the answer is no, maybe the first year, but not. It usually is not even terribly viable for most of the projects because there's enough things that take away from local preference. My feeling is we have enough things on the table right now to add that one to it is probably not necessary at this time. Listening to here, I'm getting a little anxious just listening to our desire to control and make everything available and incentivize everything. And I really think we have to step back and say what is really possible and what is not. And I think local preference is probably lowest on the list of things that I've been listening to up till now. Mm-hmm. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I just, in talking about local preferencing, I'm trying to think, I know Habitat, when they have their applications made and during the selection process, there is a preference, and I'm not sure the extent of it. I've been involved in interviewing people, but when we interview people that have applied for housing, there is some consideration for where they live, where their children go to school, and they don't, it's, you know, other people are not excluded, but there is a preference for local people on most of the habitat projects. I can look into that and get more detail on it, but I understand what Fran is saying, that you know, it should be as open as it can be, and certainly Habitat is, but there is some consideration for you know, for accepting applicants for a home for Habitat as to where they're currently living and what their current living conditions are.
Yeah, Bill, if you're willing to sort of get some more information on what other agencies
Yeah,
are doing.
I apologize. I should know more because I've been involved in it, but it's been a few years before I've actually been involved in it. But yeah, I'll look into that.
I think it's a big topic, and I think it is something that we should certainly be having a conversation about. I think the funding of our projects will limit our ability of what we could advocate for. But what our position is certainly something for further discussion. So maybe with Bill's sort of introduction, maybe next meeting. Our list for next meeting is getting long, so maybe the following meeting to start having this conversation, because I don't think we're looking at applications anytime soon for our projects that are potentially in the works, but I definitely think it is something that we should talk about, and how it plays into what the projects are looking like. So does that sound good, Fran? Go ahead.
I was just wondering, George, could you remind us about local preference? I know that a town can ask for local preference up to 70% of the units, but, and you have to justify, and funding is related to this, you have to justify what the need is. Could you kind of go through that?
Yeah, this is a fair housing standard. It's not just a state requirement. It's not related to individual grant programs. So, you know, it's fair housing.
Okay.
And you use the demographics, the income levels of the town to show the need. And as you all know, what is there, 1,000 families that are housing stressed in Orleans? You know, when you look at the numbers, so you demonstrate that there's such a local need that you want the highest possible local preference, so that your money generated locally and your local project meets the local need. I just get nervous. That's the answer to that question. I just get nervous thinking it's been a long road to get the kind of support for housing that you've got right now. And you could probably get a little bit more financial support out of the town meeting without much pushback, based on the, you know, unanimity of where it's at right now. But I think a lot of that support might be tied somewhat to, you know, helping local people. And I heard clearly the remarks, and I understand where we are in this day. But not everybody studies it quite so hard when they come to a public meeting about a housing project. They just say, are these going to be local people? So that does happen. So we have to justify local preference for any project. And thus far, it is the 70% cap has stood up from the time I got here until now anyway.
And I may be misremembering, but I think it was only 10% in Eastham, if I recall correctly. I don't.
10% local?
Yeah.
Wow.
For the Penrose. Like I said, that is a number that I'm remembering, but it could be entirely wrong. So take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, I think a little bit more information and a continued conversation is certainly worthwhile, because I think it is a question that will come up at some point, even if it is a few years down the road when we're actually trying to fill projects. Okay, Bill, thanks for taking on the research with Habitat. Anything else on that, or shall I move on? Okay, I know, Fran, you had one topic that we emailed about for next meeting. I don't know if anybody else had any other thoughts about topics they may want to explore, or do we want to flush out the ones that we've sort of identified at this point and go from there? I'm trying to, it's been so long since we met. I'm trying to give us some direction and some goals without overwhelming, our agenda with lofty ideas of what we may be able to accomplish successfully at the same time. So does anybody have any other thoughts or ideas that you may want to consider exploring for future agenda items? Okay.
Actually, Katie, if I may, this is Rich. I think with MEF, is MEF no longer the liaison? Is Andrea going to be the liaison to us?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have given her that introduction at the onset. I apologize, Andrea.
Okay, no, that's fine, because just leaving off with the last time we met, or last few times, it was with MEF, and one thing that I was remembering is like the Fixer Upper program that kind of like help you out purchasing a certain home with that went back to the incentivizing thing. That was something that he was at least he was bringing up.
Which was the idea of the HETCH program, where we have some funds set aside for income qualified individuals to help with necessary repairs. Is that the one you're talking about, Rich?
Correct. Yeah, that one, and then Shelley, back to the other thing a little bit. Shelley had like a nice kind of overview of what Wellfleet, I think P-Town was, the programs they had, and how they, you have to have income qualifications, or certain. There were certain qualifications you had to have. Those programs we could kind of pick and choose, and that'd be somewhere where I'd like to start.
I'm sorry, Shelley, will you refresh my memory on that one?
We were talking about help for homeowners, helping them to get into the market, as well as to renovate properties to make them livable. And I had done some research with some towns that have some programs like that, and I'd be happy to revisit that next time if that's what the group wants.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't know you're here, Shelley. Thank you for that. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Okay, I will have a running list. I do think there's a lot for our next agenda, but Shelley, if you want to refresh your recollection, I'm sure I can get it on, if not next month or the following month, to revisit and refresh everybody on that topic as well.
Okay.
And just to clarify, these are ideas for programs to be run with trust fund monies, I assume.
Yes, most of them, that's the way it is.
So it would
But
be
it's
income
also
qualified.
it's also connecting people to state programs that exist,
Okay.
state and local.
Rich, anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. Number 8, committee chair and vice chair seats. As it sits right now, we don't have a vice chair. It's something that we discussed some time ago. Nobody showed a ton of interest in jumping behind the helm of that one. And I think it went unnoticed when I took over for Tom. I think we just sort of forgot to appoint a new vice chair. But I am expecting my 3rd in December. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Fran.
So because we haven't
will,
seen you.
I know. And you wouldn't know it right now.
Hello here, anyway.
You would know it if you saw me in person.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So I just wanted to put that out there, that I will likely be taking a step out. I don't plan on resigning either of my roles, of whether it's the trust or the Affordable Housing Committee, but I will likely be preoccupied for a few months. So I thought it might be a good time to bring somebody else into the fold that might want to lead the meetings for me in the future. So I don't know if anybody's really thinking about it, and I let you guys think about it last time we had this conversation and no one got back to me. So I'm putting it out there and I will put it back on the agenda. I will be looking for a nomination at our next meeting. So think about it. Okay, unless somebody wants to volunteer right now, which is perfectly fine with me. Seeing none, I will put it on the next agenda. We might have, and we likely will have a new member, so that might be a good time. And we need a vice chair too. So, okay. Quickly, if we want to approve the minutes for February 7th, I did circulate those. Did anybody have any comments or corrections on the ones Nancy provided? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Fran was motion.
Second.
Bill?
Second with Rich.
Rich?
Yep.
Okay.
And all in favor, Nancy,
Aye, Nancy Wren.
Bill,
Bill Stocker, yes.
Shelley,
Shelley Dawson abstained. I wasn't there.
Fran,
Fran McLennan, yes.
Rich,
Rich Kendall, yes.
and Katie Whibby, yes. So that is 6:01, Nancy. Thank you. Next meeting is September 1st at 4:30. I think several of you have a homework assignment.
Yes.
Which, if you have anything you want to get to me ahead of time or to circulate, feel free to do so. But I will be sure to have the agenda out in normal course, and I can always send those along afterwards if you're not quite ready. The agenda has to go out by Friday, or post by Friday, I should say. George, anything you want us to think about, add on?
No, I think you have plenty going on here. I hope that the education program will start to gel, because I think you got a few dollars to do some outreach, and just the periodic, note that everybody in the community gets a chance to see that you're working and that this is important, I think is a really good step. So hope that doesn't get lost in all the advocacy here.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
actually-
real quick on that, George. I think we could start that program by, you were talking about the abutters at the last meeting. You can almost start that program with them because they're targeting them, and then that will overspill to a general kind of program.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Rich,
Right, Rich,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not sure where Rich hopped in on the meeting. But yes, I think when we talked about it, getting the input from the neighbors for 107 and trying to identify whether project specific or just general affordable housing efforts would be the way to pursue the education is sort of something that we're looking to think about. So if you have any thoughts on it.
All right. Well, I'll check with my neighbors. I've spoken to a few of them, but it's harder. It's been harder to be neighborly in recent months. So.
Fair enough.
Rich, did you hear that there's going to be an education session on the 5th of August? Were you in on that?
I did not hear that, so I'll mark that. The 25th of August?
With the trust
George,
there.
Send out the information to us all.
Okay. Thank you.
George, have you sent out those invitations for that meeting?
I did. I emailed the 10 addresses out of the 14 abutters that we had initially contacted by mail. I emailed them and invited them to the meeting. I didn't do it by mail again. Rich, I don't think I heard from you, though I believe you are an across the street abutter from the subject property of 107. Is that correct?
If you mailed something to me, I did not receive it.
Email.
No, there
email?
was a snail and email. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't receive anything by snail mail, and I don't. You send me other things, so I may have mixed that up.
So you're throwing away my mail. Okay. No,
not your snail mail. Snail mail I always keep.
You may be enough properties removed from that property that you weren't on the abutters list, but I thought
think
you
so,
were.
because probably my neighbor right in front of me is, but not me because of just like one lot down.
Tell you what, I'll send you the invite anyway, okay?
Perfect.
All right.
But George, you're also going to let us look at this also?
Yes, I'm going to send you the invitation so you know, and you can attend. Yes,
It'll be really good for taking notes on what to do next.
right,
After
right.
you've done such a great job at this one, right? But what education pieces would be needed?
Right.
The questions will be good from the people, I think.
All housing projects are great until you get an actual location and then you meet with the neighbors.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very careful in what you say and how you put it together.
Okay, so just real quick before I let you all go, I'm gonna run through my notes to make sure I didn't forget anything. So obviously the education and how we're gonna deal with the outreach is gonna be on our next agenda. We've already voted and George is going to ask FinCom to consider an expansion of the inclusionary zoning. If anybody has anything else to add, I'll put it as a topic, but it should be fairly brief at our next meeting. George is going to look into a potential fee for building permits and whether or not that's kosher with town council.
Mhm. Right.
Fran, you're going to look into the Penrose project over in Auburn, you said, I think. And I will reach out to MHP about other ideas that are going on to include market rate units in the area. Andrea has volunteered to reach out to her contacts to see if there's something that we could be done there. Bill, you're gonna talk to Habitat and get their local preference policy. Bill, that might take till next month. I mean, not
Yeah, I'll
September, but the October meeting.
Yeah.
As well as Shelley, I'll probably put you over to October because I think that is getting a bit much for next. Andrea, did you have something?
Just a question for George. George, in these projects, do you remember, do soft costs run about 30% and just in terms of construction, or maybe somebody else knows? Because what I'm thinking about is getting a bank of resources together, and I'm wondering if it's even a good idea, but I'm trying to remember from past projects if soft costs like architectural fees, permitting,
Yeah.
landscape.
I mean, certainly not, 30 is a pretty high number. I think it's like 25, 20 might be the number you start with. And of
Okay.
course, as the contingency goes down, you hone in on what the real costs are. You know,
Okay.
10% for architecture.
I mean, the idea that's circulating in my head that I want to see if it exists anywhere in the country is that the Affordable Housing Trust, if we could get design professionals to contribute part of their services in kind, and then the trust paid for part of the services, that we could reduce that 20% cost somehow as an incentive, basically.
Yeah,
And I don't know if that's viable or not.
that kind of approach is complicated by not stepping into public procurement issues and causing a public construction project, which would eat up all your savings and then some if you wind up in public. So there's a careful dance when you can get money or property to a private developer. You can't really dictate everything he's going to do. You can't hand him a plan and say, here, build this privately, and it's not a public construction project. So you know, but soft costs for initial startup of investigations of public properties are pretty much readily available through MHP. They have a startup program. We could probably get technical services from the Cape Cod Commission when we need it. I think you're thinking of local talent that could be brought to bear. And that might be a little more difficult.
Well, only because it would create such a win-win that if, you know, in these projects to employ local people who care about the outcome of the project.
Yeah, I hear you.
Design of the project. But if we've got to get around the kind of public procurement, I don't want to get around it. I want the jobs to be fair market and bid within procurement. Anyway, I'll go research if those kind of, all I'm thinking about is that infrastructure in Mass Works, you know, what are the pieces we can pull out of a project budget that would then take the relief off the developer to make it financially possible.
You
Great,
may
thank-
remember that the project in Brewster got a big Mass Works grant for site preparation.
That's right.
It wasn't constructing affordable housing, but it was a big chunk of money that they would have had to spend otherwise.
Well, and I think that's before, I don't want to chase around people, but if there were more information so I could pinpoint my question, thinking about what are the costs in a project. So George, maybe I'll get with you separately and then go look for banks or models nationally, not banks, but places where communities have organized to relieve those other costs.
Mhm, mhm. Right.
If you can hand me a list of them, that would be great.
Okay, yeah.
Cool.
Go ahead, Bill.
Eddie, real quick, regarding the August 25th informational meeting, I never completely understand public meeting laws and restrictions and everything. If all of us attend that meeting, is that considered a meeting of us as a committee, or do we have to worry about that, or?
I think George touched on it, so I'm going to let him go. I will not be there, so that's
Okay.
one out, but go ahead, George.
I think if you all just attend a meeting and sit there and if you're going to deliberate on anything, you should post the meeting.
If we're
The
just gonna-
trust will post a public meeting and the chairman of the trust will introduce things and get them moving. So you wouldn't have an active role, and I think you could all show up and watch. Just
Okay,
don't be talking about among yourselves
right.
during it.
Right, okay.
No private chat groups on the public Zoom. So no, I wasn't planning on it. We weren't, not that I'm sure we would be if I asked, but we weren't extended an invitation as a committee to attend either. So
Just wanted to be
obviously,
sure.
as all trust meetings go, you're welcome to join, but I wouldn't, I wasn't thinking about posting an agenda for that.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so I will see you guys on September 1st.
You want a motion to adjourn?
Sure. I got one from Bill.
Second?
Nancy, all in favor? Nancy?
Yes, Nancy.
Bill?
Bill, yes.
Shelley?
Shelley, yes.
Fran?
Fran McLennan, yes.
Katie Whitby, yes. Oh, sorry, Rich. I see your number. Rich?
Rich, yes.
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Bye.